a time when some seem eager to proclaim the demise of feminism or to assert that we have transcended the need for feminism. It is true that thanks to the feminists of earlier generations, the lives of women today have been immeasurably improved. But does that mean that feminism is over? Its goals achieved? Its victories won? Can we happily close up shop? The lived experience of women and girls tells us otherwise. There's still a gender pay gap in our society, and there are still terrible levels of violence against women in our society today. Economic security and physical security are fundamental elements of human freedom. And for as long as women earn less than men, have less secure jobs, and are more likely to be victims of sexual assault and domestic violence, feminism's work remains to be done. The Oxford English Dictionary may comprise some 20 volumes, yet its definition of feminism is commendably concise. Advocacy of the rights of women based on the theory of equality of the sexes. For all the diversity, complexity and nuances of feminist thinking and philosophy, I think that is a definition on which we can agree. A feminist is someone who supports gender equality. For all the achievements of our feminist predecessors, our society today is still characterised by real inequality between the sexes. In politics, 92 years after Edith Cowan entered the Western Australian Parliament, women make up less than a third of all federal, state and territory MPs. And since the change in the federal government, women's representation at senior levels in politics has gone backwards. The Rudd Labor government had 13 women in a 42-member ministry and 6 women in the cabinet. The Abbott government has 6 women in a 42-member ministry and 1 woman in cabinet. And the government's equivocation on women's issues was highlighted when the Minister assisting the Prime Minister for Women, Senator Michaelia Cash, rejected the term feminist. In the lead up to International Women's Day, she said, "I believe in equality. I believe in female empowerment. I believe in the implementation of policies that will further women's economic opportunities, but certainly labelling myself as a feminist, if that's a prerequisite now for being a Minister for Women, that's ridiculous." She went on to describe feminism as a set of ideologies from many, many decades ago now. So the question I would ask is why would Australia's Minister for Women, or assisting the Prime Minister for Women, want to portray feminism as an outdated ideology of the past? Are we all equalists now, not feminists? Now, I understand that for some women, discomfort with the term feminist reflects the fallout from divisions in feminism's second wave. There are committed women who support equality, but who wish to distance themselves from some of the more strident stances taken during the 1970s and 1980s. But for some on the political right, rejecting the term feminism is ideological. Some social conservatives like to portray gender equality as being at odds with family values. But gender equality is not the exclusive reserve of the left. There are many right-wing feminists. In the United Kingdom, the Home Secretary, Theresa May, donned a Fawcett Society t-shirt reading, "This is what a feminist looks like." She is seen as a potential future leader of the Conservative Party and the unofficial leader of a group of conservative feminists in Westminster. In the United States, Sarah Palin startled many when she came out as a conservative feminist. Now that prompted Naomi Wolf to argue that feminism is compatible with conservative political philosophies because at its core it's about individual freedom and choice. Right-wing women may prefer the rugged individualism of free markets. They may advocate for a minimalist state that doesn't intrude on individual choices. They may have conservative social and religious values. And yet, as Wolf memorably puts it, they crave equality as strongly as any leftist vegetarian in Birkenstocks. I have to say, I think Birkenstocks have a bad name. And in Australia, there are Liberal Party women like True Goward who also identify as feminists, and many other Liberal women who may or may not embrace the term, but whose careers show that women are the equal of men. There are many women who say, "I'm not a feminist, but," and then go on to articulate feminist principles. And what I would say to them is that if you are a supporter of gender equality, you are a feminist. And I would also say that I believe it is important to use and be proud of that term. For a start, it is associates us with a tradition. It honours our heritage. We're talking about women who worked tirelessly over years, women who risked arrest or who were arrested, who stared down ignorance, prejudice and overt hostility. The lives we lead today, the opportunities we have, owe no small debt to their efforts and to their sacrifices. And to walk away from the term feminist is to belittle their efforts. We have the right to vote. We have access to education, to jobs, to careers, to the prospect of economic independence and sexual freedom only because the feminists of earlier generations fought for those rights on our behalf. Rejecting the term feminist is a political decision. Rejecting the term feminist is a political decision. It diminishes one of the most important social movements of the modern era. It's a manoeuvre many on the political right engage in to delegitimise the values of feminism, to undermine policies aimed at achieving gender equality and to turn back the gains of the past. And I'd say to you this, feminism is not an extreme term. It is a mainstream movement that has transformed modern Australia for the better. Feminism has delivered benefits for men as well as women, facilitating greater involvement by men in caring for their children and tackling stereotyped views about what a real man should be. It's an important movement for all men who care about social justice and about the women they love. It is... What I'd say to you is this, it is a trap to think that feminists' work is done, that the revolution for gender equality has been won and that its gains cannot be reversed. Jennifer Baumgardner and Amy Richards wrote in their 2000 book, in 2000, Manifest A, "For our generation, feminism is like fluoride. We scarcely notice we have it. It's simply in the water." Well, that might be true in some ways, but what I would say is this, feminism isn't like fluoride in the water. I think it's more like the analogy of a bus travelling up a steep hill. If you don't keep pressing on the accelerator, you will start rolling backwards. Some of those who reject the term feminist do so in the name of choice. They argue that feminism fails to acknowledge the choices of individual women, choices like staying at home to care for their families, or choices about how to dress, how to express their sexuality and their femininity. My view is that gender equality doesn't mean everyone has to make the same choices. What it does mean is that the same range of choices should be available to both men and women. Yes, women should be free to make their own choices about how to dress. I have to remind myself of this when my 2.5-year-old consistently picks pink shoes. But women should also be able to be free to have a night out without fearing for their safety. Women should be free to choose to stay home to care for their children, but they should not be denied the choice to work because childcare is not available or their workplaces do not accommodate their family responsibilities. And what about the choices for women who would like to go part-time to spend more time with their children but simply can't afford to do so? We can vastly improve the choices available for women by lifting pay rates in female-dominated occupations, by closing the gender pay gap. On the plane today I was reading the Australian Financial Review, and there are two articles in the paper today which have the reference, "It's a man's world." One in the Boss magazine, which talks about the salaries of our highest paid executives and points out that women still earn less than men, even at that level, and one on the tech sector, which talks about chauvinism in the tech sector. And I felt like bringing them both up here and holding them up to remind us all, not that this room needs reminding, why feminism's work is not yet done. In a society where gender inequalities are structurally entrenched, it requires collective action to expand the space for individual choice and to ensure women are treated on merit. I agree that feminists should support women's choices rather than seeking to limit them. But the real constraints on women's choices come from the economic and social structures and deep-seated prejudices we still see too much of in modern Australia. The very structures and attitudes which feminists seek to change. So I hope today in talking with you I have made out the case for the continuing importance both of feminism and feminists. We should own this label, wear it with pride. and put it into action. Let us remember again that we enjoy today's freedoms because of the commitment, the passion and the hard work of the feminists of yesterday. Let us also realise that the freedoms of future generations of women will depend on our work as feminists today. Freedoms, choices and opportunities for our daughters and our granddaughters will depend upon whether we too are willing to bring about vital changes of policy by moral and political pressure and by our own actions. Thank you very much.